A very good afternoon to one and all. I am Wahida to moderate this session. Thanks for taking your valuable time to make this webinar a knowledge sharing initiative useful. Today's webinar, Insights on the Latest Amendments in Provident Fund. This is yet another interesting webinar from ADP. This is an initiative from ADP to help HR leaders and key decision makers of organizations manage sensitive aspects of the HR process as per the business trends today. We aim at providing a very good afternoon to one and all. I am Wahida to moderate this session. Thanks for taking your valuable time to make this webinar a knowledge sharing initiative useful. Today's webinar, Insights on the Latest Amendments in Provident Fund. This is yet another interesting webinar from ADP. This is an initiative from ADP to help HR leaders and key decision makers of organizations manage sensitive aspects of HR process as per the business trends today. We aim at providing the maximum inputs to the audience with the latest market insights. Our presenter for the day is Mr. Manoharan. Mr. Manoharan, National Head Statutory Compliance at ADP India, brings over 20 years of expertise in the world of compliance. He implements, administers, and enforces all policies, procedures, and activities required for an organization to operate in accordance to the laws that govern the industry. He has been instrumental in handling enterprises, no matter of the size and requirements, pan-India. At ADP India, he handles 500 plus clients spread across in various regions of the country, providing end-to-end statutory compliance solutions by supporting and guiding business units and HR leaders. Before starting this webinar, we would once again like to thank each one of you to have taken your valuable time for joining us. We would like to keep you informed that all of you would be put on listen-only mode. We encourage our viewers to put forth questions that are related to today's topic and agenda. We will be pleased to answer those questions in end of the session. Over to Mr. Manoharan.
Thank you, Aida. Good afternoon, folks. Very nice to meet you back all. The session on insights on the latest amendments to Provident Fund, which was taken earlier a month ago, might look as a repetitive session. It was, in fact, a need for a crowd and is on a very high level demand from the participants that the session is organized once again. The informations and other aspects which would be given through this session may look repetitive. Also, to say that the session of delivery may go up to not more than 15 minutes to allow the maximum participants to have their questions posted and a possible replies could be given post this delivery session. We all know that the PF department has come up with the corrections in terms of many aspects. One of those aspects is one of the most attractive aspect is of increasing the PF wage from the earlier existing ceiling of rupees 6,500 to 15,000. So we will be taking you through the Act provisions which might support the provisions of the Act to deal with the increase of wages from 6,500 to 15,000. We will also try to highlight the contradictory understandings which are prevailing in the HR paternity. We will try to support certain court rulings to substantiate the increase and the follow-ups to be done onto the PF wages. We will also understand the basic wage ceilings with some references. I would like to highlight here, as per Provident Fund Miscellaneous and Provisions Act, Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Section 2B, basic wage means all emolument which are earned by an employee while on duty or on leave or on holidays with wages in either case in accordance with the terms of contract of employment and which are paid or payable in cash to him but does not include. First of all, I would like to take the first sentence with reference to a couple of more references from the Act and rules. I would like to refer section 6, which is not mentioned here in this presentation. If you would refer section 6, it will say what is that to be considered for deducting PF wage, for deducting PF on a wage. It would say PF to be deducted on basic wages, retention allowance and DNS allowance, with an understanding that the PF has to be deducted on basic wage, retainer allowance and the other mentioned allowance. We'll have to refer section 2B for basic wages, then only we'll have a clear understanding. Otherwise, as a misunderstanding carried in the market, basic wage could be meant as so many interpretations like the minimum wages or basic wages as decided by any employer kind of things. We'll have to understand PF has to be deducted on basic wages, and the basic wage as mentioned in the Act is inclusive of all emoluments excluding certain components like house rent allowance, overtime allowance, bonus, commission or any other similar allowances. I would like to take little more time on this page. When I say basic wage means all emolument which are earned by an employee while on duty or on leave or on holidays with wages in either case in accordance with the terms of contract. I would like to little emphasize on this phrase, the terms of contract. Whenever we join an establishment or whenever we take somebody on joining, we have an appointment order released to them. Appointment order is nothing but a contract between the employer and the employee. In the contract of employment, whatever the components are mentioned, I would like to repeat, in the appointment order, whatever the component of mentioned as per the terms of contract will mean the entire basic wage as per the provisions of the Act. I would like to repeat, we should not get us confused taking basic wage as per any other provisions, because basic wage may vary from Act to Act. Basic wage will be different under a Gratuity Act, it will be different under Payment of Wages Act, it will be different under any other legislations as a matter of fact. So we'll have to understand it is as per the terms of the contract. If the contract says so many components are in the contract as per the emolument given to any employee, that all emolument will be considered as basic wages excluding the house rent allowance, overtime allowance, bonus, commission or any other similar allowance. I would like to say something on any other similar allowance as well as at this point of time. Here we take coverage under the terminology any other similar allowance, stating other allowance, special allowance and any other terminology, and considering them as excluded component. Whenever we think of excluding any component, we need to think aloud whether that is really worth excluding from the PF wages. For example, if a special allowance is considered as any other allowance as per the Act, if there are no specialities for the special allowance, the special allowance will be construed as a component for PF wages. If there is a speciality for which the employee is getting the special allowance, the special allowance need not to be considered as PF wages. One more example here, the city compensatory allowance or a conveyance allowance. To discuss about conveyance allowance, if the conveyance allowance is paid in line with the IT expectation of rupees 800 to provide facility for the income tax, that will not be considered as a excludable component from PF wages. However, if the conveyance allowance is having a backup as to say what type of conveyance an employee is undertaking, communication an employee is undertaking, and what type of conveyance allowance we pay for that employee for that communication, then that could be excluded. I would like to state a small case study here. In a case of TVS Lucas India located in Chennai versus RPFC Tamil Nadu, the RPS has contested that the conveyance allowance has to be treated as a non-excluded component and will attract PF as a component. The Lucas TVS provided so many backup papers starting from the year 1966. From then, they again so many papers to prove that the conveyance allowance is actually mattering them for a conveyance allowance paid to an employee. In that case, it was also explained in the past scenario, the conveyance allowance for the employees were as a reimbursable component, and whosoever was providing the ticket or passes for commuting from their home to the office or the factory, with that proof, they were getting that expenses reimbursed. On a later stage, when the management found the work of reimbursing to the employees were cumbersome, they took a call and they organized a uniform conveyance allowance of having different slabs. For example, if an employee is commuting from a distance of 5 kilometers, say 100 rupees as conveyance allowance. If he is traveling from a distance of 10 kilometers, say 200, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the court has deep dived inside, went and saw the evidences provided by the employer, the TVS Lucas, and given a version stating that in this case, I would like to repeat, in this case of TVS Lucas India versus RPFC Tamil Nadu, the conveyance allowance will not be considered as a component for PF deductions. We'll have to see when a court gives some verdict, we people in the HR patently start giving examples of the court directions without knowing the insights of the court directions. If I understand only the outline of the court directions stating that conveyance allowance is exempted from PF, it is not so. We'll have to go inside the judgment and see why the conveyance allowance is exempted. The conveyance allowance was exempted as it was having a backup paper to say all the employees are having different level conveyance mode and allowances, so it was exempted. If the same is designed as a component to take cover under IT Income Tax Act, that will not be considered as excludable component. I would like to explain a bit on the contractual understanding. In section 6, the contribution which shall be paid by an employer to the fund shall be 12% of basic wage allowance and retained allowance, if any, for the time being payable to each employee, whether employed in by him directly or through the contractor. I have already explained this. As per section 6, basic wage, retainer and derived allowances are paid. If we start thinking basic wage as per our understanding, we are doing a very wrong thing here. Otherwise, if I think basic wages in line with the section 2B provisions of basic wages definition, we'll have a clear understanding there. I would like to support a couple of court rulings here. In the case of Madhya Pradesh High Court, Montage Enterprises Private Limited versus Regional Provident Fund Commission of Bhopal, it was very clearly declared that the basic wage as mentioned in the Act stands as per the understanding of the Act by itself. There is no deviation allowed for that. In the case of Reynolds, Pence and other cases with the Madras High Court versus Regional Provident Fund Commission also, the court has directed all the employers to consider the basic wages to be part of the deductible PF component. So with all this understanding, I would like to take you through the basic PF ceiling increment. The salary ceiling for EPF is increased from 6,500 to 15,000 per month. Again, a repetition here. Salary means basic DA, VDA, retainer allowance, cash value of food consistence, or any other allowance paid and not defined. Salary ceiling for employee pension scheme also is increased from 6,500 to 15,000. There are no contribution to pension fund for employee joining the fund after 1st September with the PF wage above 15,000. For an understanding, any new employee taking a fresh employment on having PF wage more than 15,000, he will be considered as an excluded employee in the purview of PF Act. This is not to understand anybody who is already getting wage of 15,000 will be considered as exempted employee. It is a clear-cut understanding that any fresh employee taking a fresh employment and having PF wage more than 15,000 can be considered as an excluded employee under the purview of PF Act. Apart from this, there are two more classes of excluded employees. An employee after 58 years of service on retirement, he will also be called as excluded employee. Also, an employee who is covered with the PF trust, which is an exempted trust, also will be an excluded employee. In this case, we are to take any new employee joining with the basic wage more than 15,000 can be considered as excluded employee. We can have a cushion of having any other employee also who is not having any account with the PF department. To say, an employee who was working in any other establishment and having his PF dues settled by the PF department, thus not having any link with the PF department, also can be considered as excluded employee. Under the present provisions of the Act, minimum employee's pension and widow pension with effect from 1st September is increased to rupees 1,000 per month. For dependent children with widow, the children pension will also be 250 rupees per month from 1st September. If the deceased employee is not survived by widow but by the dependent children are available, then they will get rupees 750 per month. For us to understand how the pension is calculated, the pension is calculated pensionable salary multiplied by pensionable service divided by 70. 20% increase in the EDLI claim, that is employee deposit linked insurance claim benefit amount over and above the prevailing calculations. For us to understand, in the past, before 1st September, the EDLI was giving a maximum benefit of lakh and 30,000 rupees. The calculation of lakh and 30,000 rupees was the earlier upper limit of PF wages, that is 6,500, multiplied by 20 was the amount of 1,30,000. That was higher payable on EDLI. But after this amendment, as the PF wages increased to 15,000, 15,000 multiplied by 20 increasing to 3 lakh plus an additional benefit of 20%, 60,000. Therefore, the total maximum benefit available under EDLI is 3 lakhs and 60,000 rupees. There are no contributions to pension fund for international workers joining the fund after 1st September. Previously, it was the Indian employee as well as the international employees were to contribute for pension fund. Now, even an international employee joins, even if his basic is less than 15,000, he need not to contribute to PF for pension. It may be noted that the last amendment with respect to ceiling was on 1st June 2001, and it is after 13 years that the ceiling limit is enhanced. This is also considered in line with the price index prevailing in the society. The previous increase in the year 2001 was considered for next 10 years, that was up to 2011. Now that the decision makings have deferred to another 2-3 years, the first decision is taken after 13 years, and it is also expected that this decision may be under availability for another 10 more years. We have given some sample workings for us to understand how we have to consider our basic HRA, conveyance, overtime, special allowance, any other allowance. Under special allowance, any other allowance, as per the Act, anything which is deemed to be excludable allowance are considered here, which are not actually be excluded. Overtime is considered to keep the exclusive component. Conveyance is considered to keep non-excludable component. HRA is kept here to understand that HRA is also exempted. Please take a small look on that. I will take this as a questioning section. When there could be a questioning section post the delivery, we will take a call on the questioning section. If I go line by line on explaining all the scenarios, it might not be possible for us to cover the entire session. I have given references for this effect. Gazette notification was released by the PF department on 28th August 2014. Enhancement of EPS, EPF and EDLI were released on 29th August. Consequent to that, the department also has emphasized through another internal circular dated 6th August for the interpretation of PF wages. That's all, folks. With this, I would also like to request you all to care about the UAN number, which has become very, very mandatory. Point 1. We are supposed to be uploading 3 categories of UAN number. We are to understand that there are not going to be any withdrawals in future from the PF department. We will have to start understanding PF transfer process online. We will have to start educating all our employees to how to handle PF side and PF transfer process. When I said PF withdrawals are not going to be available, the UAN number is going to play a vital role there. When an employee leaves one organization and joins any other organization, he will be asked for UAN number by the new organization or the UAN credentials. By either of these things, it will be proved that the employee is employed further. Therefore, the settlement and withdrawals are not going to be possible. As a senior HR practitioner, I would like to recommend you all to take an undertaking from all the employees submitting withdrawal forms with a note that he is not employed anywhere after leaving and on date. If anything found as a liability during this period, the employee will take total responsibilities. It's a simple wording from my side. You can make your own phrases. Please take an undertaking from an employee who comes to you for settlement of PF. By asking the undertaking itself, the employees might not submit the forms, which is going to reduce your job from 100% to 2%, reducing your job to 98%. Thank you, folks. We will wait for a questionnaire section.
Thank you, Anuran, for your interesting session. Audience, now it's time for the Q&A session. I know all of you have a lot of questions which is related to PF. So you can ask your questions and queries using the Q&A tab, which is available on top of your live meeting client. We will answer all of your questions in the next 30 minutes we have. So please go ahead and post your questions. We already have a lot of questions now. So let's go with one by one. The first question we have is, if factory does not have canteen facility, in that case food allowance is considered for PF basis or not?
No matter whether you have a canteen or not, if there is a component staying food and consistence allowance, the same component can be excluded from PF contributions.
Thank you, sir. Next question we have is, if the basic wage is less than 15,000 per month and there are other allowance like HRA, conveyance, educational allowance, special allowance which makes per month salary more than 15,000, is that fine if we deduct PF only on the basic wage or not to be taken into consideration?
If you would refer my presentation, it would clearly state that basic wage means all the emolument. As you have mentioned, entire emoluments are considered. But you can have a relaxation from house rent allowance, overtime allowance, bonus, any commission. Excluding these specific allowances or any other similar allowances, all other components will be considered as PF wages. However, totaling all these components, if the total becomes more than 15,000, the employer has a right to restrict the PF wage up to 15,000.
Thank you, sir. Question we have next is, will the company pay PF for employees transferred to other country?
Employees transferred to other countries are also proved to be unemployed in India. Therefore, the employee can apply for withdrawal through Form 19 and 10C, and they can avail the benefit of withdrawing his contributions from the PF office.
Thank you, sir. Question we have next is, please advise again on undertaking that we need to take from employee who comes for withdrawal.
It is not specifically mentioned anywhere in the Act, or it is not guided even by the PF department. As I said, as a senior HR practitioner, I would like to recommend that if you ask for an undertaking from an employee who has resigned or removed from an organization, to state that he is not employed elsewhere, and if there could be some liabilities through his employment proved, then he will be standing for that. It will keep our workload reduced. For example, if you think 100 employees are getting resigned from an organization on a monthly basis, by making this as a thumb rule in your organization, I am quite confident that the under number will become 2 or 3. Only the person who is not actually employed, only the person who has traveled to foreign country, only the person who has opened any other business will come for applying for withdrawal. No other person will be coming. Even if he is coming, if you are asking for an undertaking, if there is a possible liability in future, we can be away from that.
Thank you, sir. Next question we have is, how do we generate UAN for our employees online?
The UAN numbers are already granted by PF department until 30th June 2014. It is available. So as I mentioned, we will have to have a practice of touching the PF website and knowing what are the provisions available there, so that we know. You have a facility of employer login. Through employer login you can go and download the UAN numbers for those employees available with you until 30th June 2014. For all other employees joined after that, you will have to ask a UAN number from the employee from the previous employment. In case of new employee on a fresh employment, if you load it as a blank, it will be allotted by the PF department.
Thank you, sir. If all of my employees are earning above 15,000 in basic, means PF is optional, am I correct?
It can't be answered as a straight forward answer here. If your employees are earning more than 15,000, if they are already having a link with the PF department, to say if they are already members of the PF department, you don't have that provision. If any new employee joining with a wage above 15,000 can be kept away from this. Any employee who is already a PF account holder will continue to become PF account holder with this enhanced PF ceilings.
Okay, the next question is, the PF withdrawal is not possible, or that anything else we missed? Okay, I think the question is not clear. Can the participant reframe a question so that we understand it to our best? Question next we have is, what about any other reimbursements?
You have a reimbursement of LTA, medical and stuff. If you can prove that they are paid on a monthly basis, you can definitely keep it away. If you are paying it on a yearly basis, there is a question lying behind. When there is a medical allowance, reimbursable medical allowance of 15,000 for any employee, if he is submitting bill less than 15,000, what will happen? the amount between 15,000 and the amount submitted for reimbursement will attract PF. If you are sure that all the employees are going to submit more than 15,000 as medical reimbursement, you can definitely keep it away because reimbursements are away. But if that is not submitted, you will be questioned for both employee share. Sometimes you may have to pay that. Same is the case with LTA.
Okay, the next question you have is, can you share the calculation of pension as per the new scheme?
There is no change in calculation of pension. It is all in the same. Pensionable wages, present wage, multiplied by pension wage divided by 70 is the calculation.
So can you again repeat that?
I would like to show you the slide for that sake. Pension calculation is pensionable salary, pensionable service divided by pensionable salary is a factor which is derived by the PF department. Pensionable service is the number of days as a matter of fact you have completed divided by 70 will give you the actual pension.
Okay, question we have next is, what is the age by which an employee can be considered exempted from being PF member? Our company's retirement age is 60 years.
As per PF provisions, employee will be considered as a retired member after completion of 58 years. After completion of 58 years, he can continue to become a PF member, not a EPS member, that is employee pension scheme member. His pension gets matured after 58. However, there is no limitation for any employee to continue after 58 years within PF.
Performance incentive, will it be considered in PF?
If you have backup to prove what is that performance and what is that incentive paid for that particular performance and what periodicity is paid, it can be considered as excluded.
Employees drawing more than 15,000 per month are exempted from PF. That means no contribution for the employee. Is there any provision Form 11?
Yeah, as you have asked for Form 11, as a matter of fact, Form 11 is supposed to be obtained by the employer from each and every employee joining the organization. The Form 11 will cater the HR to understand basically whether he is employed, whether he was employed elsewhere or not, and also to have an undertaking from the employee on having PF wages more than 15,000 to have him exempted. It is not the employee or the PF department who is sanctioning the exemption to the employee. It is the employee seeking for exemption through Form 11.
Food and conveyance are also part of PF wages.
As I said, conveyance, it's $1 million question. As a matter of fact, conveyance will fall as a part of PF wages if it is fixed across the cadres and it is considered for the income tax purposes. If that is having a backup to stay with the time slab, distance slab and the amount slab, that need not be considered as. Food allowance will not be considered as the PF wage.
Question we have next is, can the basic amount be reduced, say from 15,000 to 12,000?
Any prevailing structure should not be corrected for the sake of this PF amendment, because already declared PF wages is not only linked to the PF, it is also linking with your bonus and gratuity. If you are reducing the PF for the sake of PF, basic for the sake of PF, it can be disputed for your gratuity and bonus, because gratuity is paid on the basic and also bonus is considered and paid on the basic wages.
Dear sir, so far we have been calculating only on basic, not on all components. Please advise.
Please take a course correction. Please take this as a timeline given to you. please correct your structure. Go for paying all the emoluments excluding HRA and other excludable components. Though there will be an eye from the PF department to seek clarification for the past, at least we can be protecting ourselves from now on. If that is pointed out in at any point of time in future, definitely there is going to be a huge liability for all of us.
If an employee has less salary, let's say 15,000 per month, and this is broken into multiple components like basic, HRA, special elements, what component should be considered for PF calculation? The employee would like to pay less or as possible.
There are no guidelines provided in any of the act for the breaking of components. It is the will and fancy of the employer to design the components. However, as I said, and as per the definition, the PF wage has to be considered on total emolument. Say if there is a 15,000, say PF, basic is 5,000 rupees. Worst come worst, say 2,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees as HRA. I'm just telling some tentative figures. Rest all the components here and there. So it becomes 13,000 rupees. Total emolument minus HRA. So you are liable to pay PF on 13,000 rupees.
Question we have next is, kindly explain EDLI.
EDLI is Employee Deposit Linked Insurance. The employer contributes 0.5% of the basic PF wages to EDLI. EDLI is to promote a future security for the employee and his next of kin. In case of demise of an employee, the next of kin will get maximum of 3,60,000 rupees as a one-time disbursement. And also to say, the EDLI can be maintained either with the PF department as a contribution to PF department, or also it can be maintained with any of the insurance companies with the permission of PF department.
Whether performance bonus excluded from PF wages?
If it is intermittent and if it can have some backup papers to prove that they are performance bonus, yes it is.
Okay, question we have next is, what is PF cap from monthly wage?
The question is not clear. There is no cap for PF. There is a PF ceiling which is mentioned as 15,000 rupees, which is again considered on monthly wages.
How pension is calculated for adding contributions, additional contributions of 1.16% to PF, pension fund?
The prorated calculation will be done for that.
Okay. What should be the minimum number for employees in an organization for PF as per the latest act?
As per the act, whenever and wherever there are more than 20 employees, the establishment will be covered under PF.
I have a question not relevant to PF, but please answer if time permits. When we transfer employees from India to other countries for long-term assignment, are we supposed to consider such period for gratuity?
It's a valid question. It can be considered or it need not be considered also. If the employee is terminated and sent again taken on a fresh employment, it need not be considered. If the employee is kept on the rolls of the employer until he comes back, that will be considered.
Okay. Is there any maximum ceiling as contribution towards EPS, like it was rupees 541 out of 780 per month earlier?
Yeah, now it is 1,250 out of 1,800.
Okay. Since we are non-exempted organization, if an employee requests not to have PF contribution, is that possible? Can organizations does not allow the employees to do so?
Again, this was addressed in the earlier sayings. Any employee joining a fresh employment, it has to be looked into as to whether he is joining for the first time for the employment or not. Also, whether he has a link with the PF department of having PF account in the past scenario. If the employee is taking the first time employment and if the PF wage is more than 15,000 rupees, he need not to be considered. If an employee is settled with the PF from the PF department and if he is joining without any link with the PF department, still he need not to be considered.
If an employee has two PF accounts, which UN number to be valid?
This has to be taken as a case-to-case basis with the PF department. Please make a query with the PF department, they will assist you to do so.
Is it applicable for laborers also for construction companies?
There are no exemption for any category of employees in this. It is applicable for all employees working in an establishment or a factory or a mine or on a contract basis or on interstate migrant basis. Every employee will be covered under PF Act.
What if the international employee rejoins?
He will be considered as a new employee.
Okay. Okay, there's a question. I'm joined in a new company in which the head count is less than 8, so the PF is not possible. If the head count not going to increase in future, how can I withdraw my PF contribution in previous company?
You can withdraw your PF contribution only after attaining the age of 58 years. There is a possibility for you to leave this company and join any other company which is coverable under or covered under PF. At that point of time, this amount can be transferred to that new establishment. Therefore, it will be applicable for any and everyone.
Okay, CCA and conveyance mentioned in the compensation sheet can be included into basic?
It has to be included into the basic.
Question we have here is, could you please explain further for wage ceiling limit which is increased to 15,000 and contribution under EPS with example for PF basic wage more than 15,000, like the PF basic wage was 20,000 per month. How much is contributed to EPF and EPS?
I am not sure about your calculation, but in the previous scenario, the maximum PF wage was 6,500 rupees. If anything is paid beyond that, that's the employer's goodwill, and it goes now also on the increased or enhanced PF wages. The restriction is taken from 6,500 and lifted to 15,000. The restriction is lifted on all category of contributions. It is lifted for PF, EPS, that is pension scheme, and also EDLI.
Question we have next is, both employee and employer contribution can be deducted from employee. Please advise.
It should not be done. It is legally violatable condition. Employer share should not be deducted from employee's contribution.
What is the main difference between a salary less than 15,000 and if salary is above than 15,000? The rule mentioned so far seems to apply equally for both categories.
Your understanding is correct. There are no difference. Salary is a salary, basic is a basic, PF wage is a PF wage.
We have been paying PF on basic plus DA only. Other components like LTA, medical, food, conveyance, HRA, whether we have to pay PF on all of the above components except HRA?
You can consider conveyance allowance if they are paid for a particular conveyance. If it is a conveyance allowance paid for the sake of IT coverage, that will be covered. Food and consistence, if it is paid as an allowance, that could be deleted from this, and also HRA. Leaving three components, all other components have to be considered for PF wages.
Okay, do we need to take any other undertaking from new joinees as he was a part of PF or EPS scheme in his or earlier employment?
Practice of getting Form 11 filled from a new joining will solve all the purposes. That has the entire declaration for his new joinings, fresh joinings, and the PF willingness.
Is KYC mandatory for laborers also?
Whoever is covered under PF, it will be mandatory.
Audience, we have 5 more minutes left to finish our session for today's webinar. So anybody who have got any questions or clarifications which they would like to make, we have Manoharan here. And we would also like to extend this PF webinar to next month as well
With the latest amendments.
with more latest announcement or amendments for all of us to benefit on. So is there any more questions? You can please feel free to post a question on the Q&A tab. We have a new question now. Do we have any provision to withdraw PF once international worker when he leaves India?
Obviously, we have provisions. Once he leaves India on a cessation of employment, it is considered as not employed in India, so he has full right of withdrawing his benefits.
What is the procedure for variable PF?
There is nothing called variable PF. There is a variable pay or a fixed pay. There is nothing called variable PF.
Is the PF deductible on stipend? Okay, the question is now rechanged. What is the procedure for voluntary PF?
PF provides an employer who is not having 20 employees to take a coverage under voluntarily. The same process will be followed for voluntary PF also. The only difference is sometime we may feel the allocation of PF code getting delayed as the final confirmation has to be accorded by Central Provident Commissioner for this case. In any other case, the Regional Provident Fund Commissioner will take a call on this.
Is the PF deductible on stipend?
If the stipend is paid as per the provisions of Apprentice Act, need not to be. If it is a component derived by the establishment, it has to be.
If a person leaves the job and is not employed for 1 year, can he withdraw his PF? However, when he joins a new company, can he choose not to contribute for PF?
There are two questions here. One, after 1 year can he withdraw? Yes, he can withdraw. Second question, if he joins new organization, whether he can avoid PF contributions. Here there are again two bifurcated scenarios. If the withdrawal has happened and if he is joining the new organization on having more than 15,000 as basic PF wages, he need not to. In any other scenario, if the withdrawal is not done and if he has joined the organization and if his PF wage is less than 15, he will have to be a member.
PF wages included all the elements like you have said with effect from which date he's asking.
This is the basic provision enacted in the year 1952 when it was considered as when the PF was considering the basic wage. We have to understand that in the years 1950s, 60s and all, there was only one component for an employee, that was basic wages. For price escalation control, there was another component called DA. That is the reason PF has decided that it has to be contributed on PF and DNS allowances. Retainer allowances is for an employee who is not having employment but the employment is on, then the retainer allowance. In due course of time, we, the HR practitioners, started understanding and misunderstanding differently from the Act. On misinterpretations, the wages have taken so many shapes, so is the prevailing structures. Therefore, it is advised to follow the Act provisions which is mentioned from the year 1952.
When an employee covered under PF joins new company which is not under PF, can he withdraw his PF?
No, he cannot withdraw the PF because PF is catering for two things. One is provident fund and other one is pension scheme. For PF, even if he is leaving and joining where it is not coverable, there is an option for him to get back on having employment with a new employer with the PF code. Therefore, withdrawal is not allowed here. And it is also thought that PF is to be paid to an employee on attaining 58 for his future benefits. Also, if he joins a fresh employment, leaving this intermittent employment, the past employment period will be taken into consideration for beneficial period under pension.
Hope this webinar was useful for each one of you. We would like to thank you once again for making this knowledge sharing initiative of ADP effective and useful. We welcome your feedback. Please feel free to write to us. We would share the details of upcoming webinar in our emailer shortly. Please keep visiting ADP webinar session on our websites www.adp.in. We have posted the videos of the past webinar sessions for the benefit of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. There are more questions coming in. Due to time constraint, we are not able to take the questions. As we mentioned, we will be connecting with you in the next month also with enhanced information on these amendments. Please bear with us. Thanks, one and all.